Hi, my name's Steve, my business partner Austin, and today we will be talking about hiring a VA. So, in the beginning, when we first started doing this, you definitely not in position to even think about this, but by now you might be. And what is the value of hiring a VA, and is it even worth it? You know how I always talk about saving money and trying not to spend money. Well, there comes a point in every agency when you're doing everything yourself and it's stunting your growth. So you're doing all the work, you're sending out the invoices, you're doing all the client calls, you're finding new clients. So you're limited in how far you can go with that. You know, you're very limited because at this point, time is your enemy. You know, you don't have unlimited amounts of time. And you can say, well, there's 24 hours in a day. You certainly can't work 24 hours in a day. You could extend it out past 8, sure, but it's still stunting your growth if you have to do all that stuff. So if you are thinking of a VA, where do you find these people, and are they valuable to you? So first off, let's look at what would you hire first. Some common ones would be like admin type stuff, scheduling, client communication, reporting. All those things would be a good thing for a VA. Maybe a content writer if you're writing content for these businesses. Hire somebody who's an expert in that, and then they can write these out for you, such as the blog posts, Google Business Profile posts, social content, all that stuff. You could hire somebody to do that. You could hire a Google Business Profile specialist. They could handle your profiles, posts, photo uploads, all those things. You could hire a web developer um, to build and maintain client websites. I will give a small warning here. Be careful with your web developer, and don't judge it by what it looks like. I know that a lot of bookkeepers, they all have these same kind of websites. They look nice, and some of them scroll and do different things. That's not actually what you want. If you're going to hire a web developer, hire one that knows marketing and can get conversions. That is what matters, going forward with small businesses. They don't need all the fancy bells and whistles. They want things that work. What's the difference between a contractor versus employee? I would definitely start with a contractor. You've got no payroll taxes, no benefits, no HR headaches. You can pay per project or per hour. You can scale up and down. All those kind of things. If you hire an employee, then you do have to worry about all those things we just discussed. Also check with an attorney on this. A lot of contractor type things have changed in the last few years, a lot of the laws and stuff. So make sure if you're going that route, you know what you're doing. Um, I definitely know in the last, I think it was 18 months or so, some big changes happened and it made it harder to hire contractors. So make sure you know what you're doing, and check with your state as well, because each state has some different laws about that. So if you were to hire a VA, we've got to the point that we've checked. Now we know we want to hire contractors. Where do we go? Well, you can go to Upwork. You can go to onlinejobs.ph, and those are all, it's a Philippine-based online place, and it's affordable. And I know a lot of them get very good reviews, so that's a nice place to go. You can look on Facebook. Some people have some luck with Fiverr. If you work with somebody on a regular basis, but like I said, all these are hit and miss. You have to make sure to really look through uh, the reviews and then match up with what you're willing to pay and find somebody. Content writers, you can look a lot of the same places. Upwork is pretty good for that. Google Business Profile, you can go to Upwork. LinkedIn has quite a few Google Business Profile experts in it. Agency owner, Facebook groups, those kind of things. Um, if you just know somebody who you know is good at it, that's a great place to start. You don't want to take a chance on these Google Business Profiles, giving it to somebody who is on one of these sites and maybe doesn't really know what they're doing. So be careful with just hiring people willy nilly. you want to make sure that you get somebody who's an expert in it, because you're using that person, for your client. And if your client gets suspended, you're going down for it.
Hmm.
You may even get sued for it. So be very careful that you get somebody who's an expert. I'm going to turn it over to Austin now.
So how do you vet them? Don't just look at the profile. Put them through a simple process. Like step one, send a short application. Ask 3 to 4 questions in your initial message. Someone who answers thoughtfully is already ahead of 80% of applicants. Some sample questions. What tools do you use for this task? Describe a time you handled relevant situation. What's your availability and turnaround time? Do you have examples of past work? Step two, give a paid test task. So always pay for test work. It filters out people who aren't serious and shows you what their actual output looks like before you commit. So for a writer, ask for 1 GBP post, a 300-word blog intro on a topic you specify. For a VA, give them a small research or formatting task. For a GBP specialist, have them audit a profile and give you notes. Step three, evaluate communication, not just output. Do they ask good questions? Do they deliver on time? Were they easy to work with? Skills can be trained. Reliability and communication are harder to fix. So setting them up to succeed. Most contractor relationships fail because of unclear expectations, not bad hires. Build a simple SOP of every task you hand off. So, like even a Loom video walkthrough is enough to start. Show them exactly how you do it, then let them do it. So, what to document, what the deliverable looks like, your brand, voice, and client tone guidelines, turnaround time expectations, how to communicate or questions or blockers, how and when they get paid. Use a simple tool to manage the work, like Trello or Notion for task tracking, Google Drive for file sharing, Slack or Voxer for communication, Loom for async video feedback. So what to pay? It depends. If they're a VA, like maybe 20 to 45 an hour. A content writer might go 25 to 75 an hour. A GBP or SEO specialist might go 20 to 60 an hour, and then a web developer might go 30 to 100 an hour. So start with the trial scope, maybe 5 to 10 hours on one project before committing to an ongoing arrangement.
So, Austin gave you a bunch of really good tips there. The one thing that I wanted to go back and specify is the brand voice and client tone guidelines. So you may be working with, let's say you're working with a plumber, let's say you're working with a lawyer, let's say you're working with a doctor, all these three different things. The voice of the client is going to be quite a bit different on each one of those. So you want to make sure that the person you hire is aware of that and can do that. Some people might be good at talking, like the plumber might talk, but not so good as talking how the doctor might talk. So all these things are important to kind of hash through, and maybe have them do a small scope on a couple of those different topics if they're that drastically different in the clients that you have. That's all I have for today. I will caution you about trying to get too cheap with your VAs, that you might also get very cheap work coming back. So don't try to skimp too much on that, because it's very important to get quality as opposed to getting somebody who's very cheap. So the quality is where it's at. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and we will see you tomorrow.